swing.
It's impossible.
Excel is the perfect.
Everywhere I go, I'd like you all to know that I'm the one for having fun, to send the bad times on the run, to move around to the softest sound, ecstatic dancing all around. I'm on the town, I'll give you hell if you don't put me in my cell. I mean the soft, I mean the top, I'm like my cabaret non-stop. It may be erotic, it may be ecstatic, whether down on the floor or in your attic. Take a pill and shut our eyes and let our love materialize. And I don't mean love on a chocolate box, I mean a love that really rocks. 'Cause they call me the baby, the good time lady. Just look at me and it's easy to see why they call me Cindy Ecstasy. Ecstasy, ecstasy. 'Cause I've got the eyes, the words, the wines to make your love thing really rise. You don't need to speed your patter when you've got the prize that'll brighten your skies. So look me up and I'll tell no lies, 'cause I'm the lady with the hot surprise. If you don't believe me, ask Ethel. I shook them up and I gave him hell. So call up Cindy Ecstasy if you're looking for a memory. So call up Cindy Ecstasy if you're looking for a memory. So call up Cindy Ecstasy if you're looking for a memory. So call up Cindy Ecstasy if you're looking for a memory. So call up Cindy Ecstasy if you're looking for a memory. So call up Cindy Ecstasy if you're looking for a memory. Ecstasy.
Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian. Under 17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
There's no one here but a lot of these crazy people, and us, of course. Welcome, fans of fantastic films, once again to the DriveIn ASYLUM double feature. I'm Bill Van Ryn from fanzine DriveIn ASYLUM, and our special guest on this episode is Mike Justice. And welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me again.
For those of you wondering where Sam is, he's wrestling tonight. He'll be on the second segment. So now you have an extra special reason to tune in even more after the movie. And this first film is one of Mike Justice's favorites, so I'm very excited to get into this.
Yeah, I love these. It's kind of like, it gives me like SF Brown Rig vibes, but it's shot in San Francisco. I like the contrast. It's like a regional horror in like one of the most gentrified, expensive places in the world now. So it makes me nostalgic.
Funny how that happened. This is I agree. This is very SF Brown Rig, if only because it's just so basic, bare bones production. It takes place in a house. One of the things that always strikes me about Don't Look in the Basement is how little there actually is in that building. And of course, the reason for that is because it was actually a place where they housed campers and people who were on events. But it was supposed to be a place where a whole bunch of people lived, and yet there really wasn't a whole lot of personal items in it. And Criminally Insane is very much like that.
Yeah, it's very, you can just hear like it's just got those sticky nicotine drawstring blinds and bad wallpaper, and it looks like somebody's grandma's house where nobody's been living for years. So
have you been to San Francisco? I'm assuming you have, probably many times, right?
Oh yeah, yes, no, I grew up there. I grew up in the Bay Area, so
Ooh,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
So I was born in San Francisco. I consider myself a San Franciscan, although I did probably the majority of my childhood was spent in the suburbs. But my family lived in San Francisco. It was in the Russian community. Everybody had a house like Ethel's. Everyone was an old lady who had no furniture in my social circle growing up. So
what was the thing about having no furniture?
Because they were immigrants. They all got here off a boat, and then they went to the Salvation Army, and there was like, okay, one couch, one chair, one frying pan, one wall calendar for free from the Vitasoy company, and that's like how everybody would decorate their homes. And so, like, Ethel's house is straight out of my childhood. That's why I think I love this movie so much.
I've only been to San Francisco once in my life. It was in 1990. I went out there to visit a friend who actually lived in Sacramento, but I flew into San Francisco and she drove there to pick me up. And we stayed overnight because the car we were driving broke down in San Francisco. Those hills in San Francisco can work wonders on your vehicle.
Was it a stick?
It was a stick.
No.
I think the water pump went bad, though. So,
okay.
Who knows? Whether it's San Francisco's fault is debatable. But I was really just blown away by how different it was to Pittsburgh, because all of the buildings were Easter egg colored. And of course, you wouldn't see anything like that in Pennsylvania.
Well, and also it has that Spanish influenced infrastructure that you find a lot in South America and stuff, where like the houses are all up on the street. Like there's no front yards. There's just like a wall, like terraced home, like they have in England and stuff. So it's got a very interesting and unique geography and architecture that's wholly San Francisco. Like it's impossible. There's no other place that really looks like it, except maybe parts of Boston, I guess, or Glasgow, Scotland sometimes gets used for San Francisco because they have some city blocks of sandstone bay windowed apartment buildings that kind of look like San Francisco, but
except no substitute.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's it's a country club. Like it costs money just to walk around the block. Like everybody there is either rich or homeless. They don't have Ethel Janowskis and blue collar grandmas living in those houses anymore. So this really is a time capsule.
I love it. The reason I mentioned about flying into San Francisco was because we ended up staying overnight, and luckily she had a relative there, and we stayed overnight at her uncle's house, I think. And it was a mid-century dream. It kind of looked like, the houses in San Francisco, they're beautiful by most standards, but I didn't expect what I saw when we went inside, and it was just this beautiful mid-century time capsule. And the thing that really stuck out to me was that in the house there was a tiny little courtyard.
I know what you mean. Yeah, they had it was like the little doors off the dining room opened into this thing that's almost kind of like a ventilation shaft, but it's got plants in it and stuff. Yeah, they do that. And you're right, they are in those mid-century homes. Like they did build houses like post-war houses like that. It's funny. So you can have your coffee without going outside.
What is up with that?
I don't know, but they're really cute. I kind of missed them when I didn't live in San Francisco anymore. There's certain things about San Francisco that I kind of missed. I missed the split bathrooms. It was like every house had a toilet in one room and a shower in the other. And the split and they all had separate hot and cold water spigots on the sinks, because all these houses, they're all I always said that if I was rich enough, I would want to move to the Mexican war streets in Pittsburgh and decorate a townhome exactly like the house in Criminally Insane. Like,
So welcome to everybody in the chat. It looks like you have at least one personal friend in the chat, Mike.
this is Vaughn. He's an Andy Milligan devotee. So
You are most welcome here, Vaughn. I just had to explain to somebody how wonderful Andy Milligan was on the Groovy Doom page not too long ago. And this is very exciting. This is our 88th episode. That just blows my mind. I don't know. Like I guess it seems like we just started doing this a couple of weeks ago, but this is our 88th episode. I can't get over it.
when did you start? It was was it pre-2020? Was it in like fall of 2019?
No, we started after the pandemic.
Okay.
It was probably I think it was in like May or June of 2020.
Okay.
We started doing that. So,
that's right. The show kind of was a response to the pandemic, right? Like, oh, well, if we can't leave our house, let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and sadly, it's still like that.
Well, now it's more sort of like, I feel like my social skills were ruined by the pandemic. So I'm just like, I like living in the cage. Like, I'm like a tiger who doesn't want to like escape from the zoo now.
Yeah. I don't know. We've all learned to like it, I guess. Some of us, anyway. I'm sure there's a lot of us that felt trapped.
It's cozy, and I've been saving money like a crazy person the past couple of years. So, yeah,
it helps if you're old.
Yeah,
if you're old and you don't feel like going out anymore, then this is probably it's great.
Yeah, definitely. If this would have hit like 20 years ago, I probably would have like jumped off a roof or something.
Mm-hmm. But anyhow, I'm glad that all of you folks are here hanging out with us. It's very nice to see all of you. And some of you we just saw a couple of weeks ago at the DriveIn Super Monsterrama. I don't know if Tracy's out there in the chat yet, but Tracy Palma was there. Chris Fisnick was there. And Fisanic. I think I mispronounced your name. Sorry, Chris. And Mark Dockham was there. It was a great time. Absolutely fabulous. It feels like it just flew by after months and months of looking forward to it. It was really kind of sad to see it end. I don't know. I always wish that there was a third day. I wish there was a Sunday. It's Friday and Saturday nights typically, but I always wish that there was yet another day to attend because it's a bummer when it's over. But since a lot of you couldn't be there, we did shoot a little bit of footage there, and I have it prepared for us to watch right now. What was exciting was I submitted the trailer, the promo spot for DriveIn ASYLUM. They started showing it like the last couple of shows, and it's really nice of them to do that for us. So take a look at this.
I just watched Wired today. Holy shit, that movie is horrible. I know it is. It's like the book's horrible. It's wrong.
There's Sam Panico chatting with Chris Fisanic. And, it was a sold-out show both nights, which is very exciting. Well, unless you were one of the people that got turned away because there weren't enough places there. Oh, Neon Brainiacs were there too. And they were doing a podcast from there. There's the projection booth. This is our little encampment up at the front. It's my buddy Dave Pollack from work. And, you can hear Cubby shaking off. Tags rattling. Okay, so here's where they showed the promo spot.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Yay! Yay!
My friends are so obliging.
Issue number 23 features an extensive interview with actor Carr from William Castle's Let's Kill Uncle in 1973 shocker horror. We also talked to the enchanting Christine DeBelle from Meatballs and Big Brawl. And of course,
Meatballs.
you'll find pages
Jeff
of
Jordan loves how I say
Instagram ads
meatballs in that
arranged in
promo.
collage form, ways to find them in your
Oh, this is so
newspaper.
good, bro.
Images
You
of
look
the
at the picture.
sensation, the shocking, the lurid, the bizarre. They're here, now, waiting to be rediscovered in the pages of DriveIn Files. Order directly from Etsy Shop, Retail, or visit one of these fine retailers to pick up DriveIn ASYLUM. Your fantastic
When you got the 355-star reviews on Etsy, it's a lot.
And 1 4-star
I know.
review.
Even that. I know some guy knocked it down.
So there's some footage from the Super Drive-In Monsterrama. Don't you wish you could have been there?
Were you telling me that Christine DeBelle sort of pointedly didn't want to talk about having been in Alice in Wonderland when she did the interview?
Well, I didn't interview her, so I can't be sure. Bill Green did that interview, but yeah, I think she told Bill at the beginning of the interview that she didn't want to talk about it because it's been talked out.
Is it hardcore? I can't remember.
Mostly it's softcore, but there is one hardcore scene in it, and I think they used hardcore inserts in some prints. Those were not her, but there was one hardcore scene that was her, where I think one of the producers of the film convinced her that in order for the film to be authentic, she had to give him oral sex.
Okay, Vincent Gallo.
Yeah, and you know, so I understand why she doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh yeah, totally. It sounds
for the most part, yeah. I mean, it probably just felt better not to ask her, you know.
I always liked her. I remember on USA Up All Night they would always play. They at least once a year they would run Cheerleaders Wild Weekend. But so I kind of know her from that and Meatballs.
She's wonderful. She's one of those actors that just, you know, it illuminates the screen. It really is surprising to me that she didn't become a bigger sensation than she was.
You know who she was? She was like the female lead in Jackie Chan. Okay, so you remember Rumble in the Bronx, and it was always like, this is Jackie Chan's American debut. Well, I remember he was in one movie before that was sort of kind of high-ish profile. And Christine DeBelle was his girlfriend in that.
The Big Brawl.
Yeah.
There was a clip of it in that promo. Yes, that was probably one of the biggest things that she did, one of the highest profile roles that she had, where she was a lead.
For some reason, I always remembered it as being Elizabeth Barrage from the Funhouse. And I remember swearing up and down this was like pre-smartphone, where I'd be at bars and I'd be like, no, Elizabeth Barrage was in a movie with Jackie Chan. Like, and nobody could prove me wrong. And then I'd be like, oh, it was Christine DeBelle. Whoops, sorry.
So that was the Monsterrama. Oh, Mike, you haven't mentioned my T-shirt tonight yet.
I have. Before the show started, Boobs Disco. I love it. I want it. You should sell that. But Jody Satva wants to know if I was going to shoot a movie in Northeast Portland, where would I go? Probably in Northeast. Probably out past, like, again, I think it's called Rose, something like Roseville or Rose, like whatever neighborhood that is, just out to like the outer Northeast Portland, and make a movie about a killer living in a camper or something, and it would get protested as being like anti-homeless, and it would be good for business. I'd be like the guy who like paid women to protest snuff and pretend that like they wanted it shut down, you know, to get like, that's what I would do.
That's a great marketing tactic, so why not use it?
I know, yeah. So,
well, Boobs Disco is actually from that movie that we watched. Was it the last show before our break where we did the demon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, Boobs Disco was a real place, and I assume that Boob was the proprietor.
No, I asked him. So I'm friends with the son of the guy who opened Boobs Disco, because I was Googling Boobs Disco about like 15 years ago and found him talking about it, and we've been like pals ever since. And I asked him once, I said, so is boob, like in South Africa, is boobs like a euphemism for something else? Or is it like a play on words? Or is it like a nickname or something, kind of like how they say fanny in England, and he goes, no, it's boobs, like tits.
Boobs.
And I was like, you just call that disco that? And he's just like, yeah, it was his dad who owned it. So.
Well, I wouldn't admit it. Even if there was a boob, I would say that it was for the scandalous reason.
I thought for sure it was going to be like something like, boobs was, a slang for, I don't know, a knucklehead or something like that, but no.
Well, it is.
I know, but I thought maybe like down there it was like something. Yeah, but no, he just said it was boobs. So.
So, back to our first feature tonight, Criminally Insane. What makes you like this much?
I like it because I like the atmosphere. I love the graininess. It's just the graininess, the crustiness. I love the house that it's shot in. It's very nostalgic for me. It's one of those movies kind of like, I love crappy old 2- and 3-story houses like this house in Criminally Insane and the house from The Deadly Spawn. I feel like I could just move into and not change a thing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah. Oh, also Andy Milligan's house, like from the Ghastly Ones. This movie gives me like Ghastly Ones Seeds vibes with its house. So I have to say it's probably just the house. It has a reputation for being more tongue in cheek than it really is. Like you'll see, it's kind of advertised as this zany, bad taste comedy about a fat woman killing people, but it feels a lot more kind of Ray Dennis Steckler, Depression era, crime doesn't pay, potboiler. Like, I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
I agree. It does. Patricia Alden is the lead actress in this film. She is Ethel, and Priscilla, not Patricia. I think it's Priscilla Alden. And she's very much like Shirley Stoller. She just has this sort of deadpan delivery that she has, even for the most bizarre behavior. she really is kind of intimidating to look at. So I wouldn't want her angry at me.
Yeah, she does. She kind of reminds me also, she's like Shirley Stoller mixed with the killer from the movie Target, the Peter Bogdanovich movie, because she doesn't camp it up. She's not like Pat Ast or something where she's like arching, twirling her mustache or whatever. It's just very like nonchalant. Like she's just like, yeah, I'm going to kill people. So, and she doesn't seem to be taking like sadistic glee from it as much as she's just sort of like getting rid of things that annoy her. It's a kind of a creepy performance, actually. She was a celebrated actress in the Bay Area, like in the drama scene, and she passed away a few years ago. But I wish I could. I would always wanted to ask her about her choices in this movie. The choices that wanted to ask, did you make choices, or was this just a paycheck? Like, how did you relate to this? So, but I can't ask her.
Sometimes with these low budget films, I think the reality is that the actors were rushed through it, and they really didn't have time to think about what they were doing. They just sort of did whatever felt right at the time, and that's what ended up on the screen, obviously. So
yeah, because rehearsal is not an option, in movies like this and stuff. So, and it was retroactively AKA'd Crazy Fat Ethel years later when they made a sequel. Like nobody ever called it Crazy Fat Ethel when it came out. It was always called Criminally Insane. But a lot of people like the title Crazy Fat Ethel more because it sort of, like I said, like it gives the impression that the movie is more tongue in cheek than it really is.
Yeah, although it is sort of like it has that Grand Guignol sort of aspect to it, where you can't take it all that seriously because it's so outrageous, the stuff that happens in it.
Yeah.
So it does have that going for it. I love that it's deadpan, though. I love that it just sort of like goes for it. It gets there, and it's brief. It's only an hour long.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of I don't want to say that it's boring. I don't think it's boring at all, but I remember like watching it and getting up to like 4 minutes into the movie and then feeling like, wow, I feel like I've already watched like 15 minutes of movie. Like they just try to like it's I wouldn't say it's not a slow burn. It's like they do cram a lot of information into this 60 minutes, but it's told it's such a leisurely pace. And
that was cold, Ethel. No. Cold Ethel and Crazy Fat Ethel are not the same. But I was singing that all day, Cold Ethel, in preparation for this film. Anyway, continue.
I forget. What were we talking about?
Sorry, I derailed you.
You derailed my argument.
How rude.
I know. That's fine. It wasn't important. I had this edible like an hour ago, so I'm good.
I did too. I'm starting to feel mine right about now.
Yeah. I was also like, work has been hard, so I was like last night. I was like, hey, like, why don't I just drink a 6-pack by myself? And so I'm a little exhausted.
David, you're bailing early. Thanks for popping in. Jody had a question. Did we address this? Have you been to the Subway in Linton?
Where's Linton? In Portland? I don't know.
Possibly. I don't know. Sorry, Jody. I let that scroll by too quickly and it wasn't there. Thanks, Paul. Yes, I do, but we all know that. So I can't remember the first time I saw Criminally Insane. I guess it was online because I never rented this. This was not available in my local video store. At least, when I was growing up.
It's funny is I grew up, going to every mom and pop store I could, and I never saw this movie except at Blockbuster in the town where I went to high school in like the suburbs. For whatever reason, they had it, and I rented it a lot, and then I ended up buying it, and I had it for a while, and then like my ex stole it when we broke up. So
I hate when that happens.
I know. But I had like indoctrinated him into the cult of Criminally Insane, and he was like obsessed with it, and he made it, did a website about it and stuff, and back in the early days of the internet. So
I had a mom video store when I was growing up. There were these two lesbians that ran it, and they were fucking awesome. Every time I went, first of all, they rented movies to me, and I was clearly underage. I was like 14, I think, when I started renting from them. But they didn't care, and all we would do is talk about horror movies. When I went in there, they loved horror movies. Like they watched everything. They were like Quentin Tarantino in his video store days. Like they watched every fucking thing that came through there, and they always had reviews to share with me. And I'd walk in and like they'd say like, you have to see this one. This one's really crazy. You're gonna love it.
Is that where are they the ones who got you the Deadly Spawn?
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah,
that's where I rented it from them in the giant Continental video box, and those were the days.
No, it had the gaudiest cover. Remember, it was like a special effects shot of the alien, and then there was just all these like dismembered body parts sitting in front of it. It was like they always had really gore. I remember they had their cover of City of the Walking Dead actually showed like a woman being stabbed in the boob, like on the front of the video.
Yeah,
like no shame.
And I was shocked when I saw what that movie really was too. I was like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
I remember I was kind of turned. I mean, because I love the Romero, like Dawn of the Dead and stuff. So when I saw City of the Walking Dead, I was like, this is so crusty and European and cheap looking. And now I love it for those reasons. I'm like,
right, yeah.
I'm like, it's crusty and European and cheap looking. Like it's great. But yeah, at the time, I remember feeling like it was like, I always remember feeling like European, like non-American movies were trying to rip me off and trick me into thinking they were American. Like Canadian movies and South African movies and Italian movies. It was like I was always like, no, I see the dubbing. Like they were trying to pull the wool over my eyes or something. And now I love European horror. But
yeah, I rejected a lot of that stuff initially when I first saw it as being just like, oh, well, this is crap. And it's not like you said, it wasn't George Romero. So it wasn't a real zombie movie. I even hated Zombie for that reason. Like, can you imagine not liking Zombie? I was really stuck up, but I've changed my ways.
Well, maybe it's because it's when you're like really good friends with somebody and you hated them when you first met them. Like maybe in order for you and Zombie to get to that place, you had to like get off on the wrong foot or something.
Zombie forgave me, even though Zombie didn't have to, and I'll always be indebted to Zombie for that. And Zombie and I are pretty good friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other ones that you never came around to?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Oh, yeah, here's a good one. Night of the Zombies.
I hate Night of the Zombies.
Fucking hate that movie. Everybody loves it. I know the chat's gonna blow up because I said that.
No,
but
it's not. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's anti-entertaining, and it's offensive because the director made it so bad. Like, I hate it.
Sam's here, so I can get away with saying this. Sam wouldn't let me get away with it.
Sam and I were talking. I was telling him about how much I hated the movie, that Lindsay Lohan movie, I Know Who Killed Me, and he was like in defense, like he was like, but it's bad, it's terrible, why don't you like it? I'm like, because it's bad and terrible. Like, it's basically, we both have the same opinion of the movie, we just either like it or hate it for that reason. Like, it just, I don't know. I don't like bad movies. Like, I like movies where they tried really hard to make a good one but failed, like Exorcist 2 kind of bad movies. But I don't like bad movies where it's like it's cynical. Like, they were just like, the writer and director and producers all just put together a movie because they thought it would make money, and then they just did it wrong. Like, that's what I feel like I don't think like Night of the Zombies is like some crazy funny Italians like passion project or anything.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the problem I have with it, is that it just doesn't seem like anybody involved with the film cared. And Sam would argue that with me, I'm sure, but. Or maybe
he would say it was great. He'd be like, I know, isn't it wonderful? They were all cynical and like jaded. And it's like, no.
Yeah, Paul brought up the fact that they borrowed some music from Goblin for Night of the Zombies. Not actually licensed or anything. They just kind of like took it. So, there's even dialogue from Night of the Living Dead in it, if I'm not mistaken.
Night of the Living Dead, though, is like, it's public domain, right?
That they could get away with.
Yeah.
Well, it's not anymore. You couldn't get away with it now, but at the time you could.
Right. And they also have weird little loopholes. Like, for instance, certain prints or versions of movies can be public domain while the original isn't. So that's how like Diamond Entertainment was able to put out like The Beyond, because the 7 Doors of Death print is not protected by copyright, and they could just claim it was that or something.
Yeah. House by the Cemetery too.
Mm-hmm.
There was a print with the title Zombie Hell House, and they were able to put that out. I think it even looked really nice. Like, they did a widescreen presentation of it and everything.
Yeah. It was like they could do that, but they would just claim that, like, no, this is actually the blanky blank version or whatever.
So Dustin hinted at a little something that I would like to share. Some exciting DriveIn ASYLUM news. Well, first of all, I finally have started production of the 1981 yearbook. That's going to be our next issue. A fabulous special dedicated only to movies that were released or came to prominence anyway in 1981. Now, we all know 1981 was the year of the slasher, but there were other great horror movies that came out in exploitation in general for that. Oh, yeah, it was the year of werewolves, Wolfen, American Werewolf. So 1981 was a lot more than slashers, and we're going to talk all about it. A companion piece to our 1979 yearbook. What were you going to say?
Nothing.
Oh, it looked like you were getting ready to say something.
No.
But after that issue, that's going to be the next issue. That should come out like towards the end of May, early June. Well, I just looked at the date and it's May 15th. So June, definitely. It's not going to come out in May.
I don't know if you should put The Demon in there, though, because I don't think The Demon came out till 1983, even though it was produced in 1981.
Well, that's a good question, because there are a lot of movies in that. Like for the 1979 issue, you can actually see it over here, the cover, the 1979 yearbook. Dawn of the Dead is on the cover, and that actually, everyone's like, that's a 1978 movie. Yeah, it was if you lived in Italy or if you were at the Cannes Film Festival. I mean, that's like the only place that you could see Dawn of the Dead in 1978. It didn't come out in the States until 79. Same thing for Halloween. There was like an independent, like a sort of regional release for Halloween. Some cities got it in 78, but the nationwide rollout after they realized they had a big hit on their hands, that happened in 1979.
Yeah, it makes more sense because you're dealing with advertisement and nostalgia, so you want to showcase the movies as they were as they were like, you're trying to, it's a yearbook. Like you wouldn't put like kids who already graduated and didn't spend any time with you in the yearbook, or kids who hadn't come to school yet or whatever. So yeah, gotcha.
So we can get away with it,
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that's going to be the next issue. The issue after that will be number 24. And I'm very excited to announce that it's going to be dedicated to, well, not completely dedicated to, but I'm going to have a large feature about 1972's Scream Bloody Murder. And not the one about the kid with a hook for a hand, the one that we watched on the show not too long ago about the guy who keeps mannequins.
Is that the one where he got eaten by sharks?
Yes.
Yes. I love that movie.
Now, that movie's also called My Brother Has Bad Dreams. And a long time ago, I reached out to the star of the film, Marlena Lustig. She plays the sister in the movie. And I found her on Facebook, and I sent her a message. But you know how Facebook is, unless you're friends, it goes to that folder nobody looks in for messages. And that's probably for the best, because most of the stuff that ends up in there is like, hi, come to my sex chat room. Yeah. But I finally got in touch with her thanks to Robert Fries from the magazine It Came From Hollywood. He also writes for DriveIn ASYLUM. He talked to Marlena. She's going to be in an issue of It Came From Hollywood. And thanks to Robert, I had a nice conversation with her this morning, and she's going to be in DriveIn ASYLUM. And on Monday, I'll be talking to the director of this film, Robert J. Emery. And I have a lot of questions for Bob, not only about Scream Bloody Murder, but also about other movies he made, like Ghetto Freaks, a.k.a. Sign of Aquarius. He's a filmmaker from Tampa, originally. Right now, he's I believe Bob is in his 80s, and he's a successful novelist now. He has a series of books. He may have been a novelist all along, an author all along, but I'm going to get some information about that from him as well. So we'll have Bob Emery and Marlena Lustig at issue number 24. Very excited about it. Scream Bloody Murder, that version is one of my favorite films of all time. Not that I don't like the one about the guy with a hook for a hand, because that one's beautiful too.
I remember somebody, I think, when we showed that, didn't like a couple of people in the chat like accidentally watch the one about the guy with the hook for the hand? I remember somebody saying that they watched like a completely different Scream Bloody Murder by accident.
Yeah, that happened. That was real. But
yeah.
That was one of the first shows we did, was Scream Bloody Murder with a guy with a hook for a hand. So that was way back at the beginning of the DriveIn ASYLUM double feature.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't remember the first movie that I watched with you guys. I do remember you put up some really funny promos where you were like hiding behind a potted plant and doing like this weird like Igor voice or something.
Thank you, Paul, for clarifying that. It's going to appear in Videoscope, the rebooted Videoscope magazine. So that's very exciting that Videoscope is back.
Was it gone?
Please. Yes, after Bob Kane passed away.
Oh.
Wait, did I mess up his name? The Phantom of the Movies. He passed away not too long ago, and he was behind Videoscope. So
wow, that's sad. He did?
Yeah, he did. But it carries on now, so that's a positive thing.
Joe Kane.
Sorry, Bob Kane is Batman. Sorry, Joe.
And then Joe. Bob Crane is the guy from Hogan's Hero.
Bob Crane, yeah.
So do you want to watch Sam's drink video or do ads?
Oh, there's no video from Sam doing the drink.
Are you going to do it?
Drink live.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, if you're thirsty, we can do the drink. I'd be happy to.
Do you want a drink in hand for when you show the ads?
Right.
That makes sense, because otherwise you'll have to rush through the ads to get to the drink.
Okay, let me make sure I have the recipe ready to go here. Yeah, okay.
Oh, see, David Assassino might have been too stoned to watch the right Scream Bloody Murder.
Yeah, he was the one David, you're our kind of people. If you're too stoned to watch the right movie, you're in the right place.
I remember I watched, what was the movie that we watched that was it was black and white, and it existed in a Spanish version and a dubbed English version?
It could be the Brainiac.
I think it was the Brainiac,
Yeah.
and it was like a Mexican movie, right?
Yes.
I just watched the Spanish one because it was better quality, and I was like, okay, I'll just try, because I've been watching novellas for years, so I was like, okay, I think I got this.
Yeah, that was definitely Brainiac, one of our faves. I think Dustin was on for that one. So many screams. The screams just never ended. Okay, so this drink is called the Big Fat Ethel. And for it, you're going to need 2 different kinds of rum. So I hope you went to the liquor store today. I really do. Or else you're not going to be able to make this drink. The first thing that you put in is, and this is actually, wow, I just realized what a large drink this is. But for the Big Fat Ethel, I guess that makes sense, right? So we're going to do 2 ounces of Kraken. I guess I could represent and put the label up front. There we go. Any sponsorships you want to provide, any of these liquor people, talk to us. Because, if you're going to get seen anywhere, it's going to be on our little live stream broadcast, right?
So who in the chat do you think is a scout from the liquor companies? I think Beth.
Yeah, Beth could be. Tracy could be. Maybe that's why she came all the way here from New York for the Monsterrama, like to check us out and make sure we were worthy.
Yeah.
The next 2 ounces you're going to put in is this Cruzan hurricane-proof rum. And we're pouring this into a shaker with ice, by the way. I don't think I specified this. I'm a terrible host. The next thing we're going to do is another 2 ounces. I told you this drink was going to get big. 2 ounces of triple sec. So, I have a friend who tells me that every time she drinks triple sec, she wants to fight. So maybe that'll happen to me too.
That used to be me and Four Loko.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd like put my fist through a window and shit and got in a fight outside a bar. And it was all because it kept you awake longer than like after you should have passed out.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's why the kids were getting so messed up.
Yeah.
How could you promote something like that on our program? You're going to get us canceled.
They changed the recipe. It doesn't exist in that form anymore. They had to take some of the stimulants out. So
another thing that people that can't control themselves ruined for everybody else. 2 ounces of grenadine are going to go in next to this witch's brew. I don't know what this is going to look like a mess. But I'm sure it's going to be delicious. It's going to be a big, big hit.
But yeah, like Sam loves his rum.
He does. Okay, so 8 ounces of pineapple juice. I had to check and see if there are 8 ounces in this teeny tiny little can. There are, so we're good. Shake it up first, because pineapple juice is always better if you do that first. Pour that into your shaker as well.
I was never a dude bro, but I was cheap and trashy. I was, right? Not anymore.
Yeah. Why are you saying was? I was hoping you were still that way.
No, I still am, but I wouldn't drink Four Loko now. I just drink like Trader Joe's cheap wine or something.
If Mike Justice's screen goes away quickly, it's because he said he was all reformed now. Okay, so now we're just going to shake this all up. Bartending is not my expertise, so bear with me here. And voila. You have this gorgeous looking Big Fat Ethel drink. And Mike, I know that you have something special there, but you said it's just beer, right?
Oh yeah, I'm drinking Hop Valley Stash House Pineapple IPA.
No shame in that game.
So I was wondering if I was... Do you think you could garnish? So I was wondering what kind of garnish would go with that cocktail, and I know that Ethel has a particular fondness for Nilla wafers. That is like a recurring, like the closest thing that Criminally Insane has to a recurring gag in the movie, because it takes itself way too seriously. But it has this whole thing of her with the Nilla wafers. Could you put like a Nilla wafer like on the side of the glass? Would it go with the taste of that drink, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you in a minute after I taste it, but just pretend there's a Nilla wafer on the side, because that sounds like an excellent idea for garnish. Although it get kind of soggy, I got to tell you.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Okay, go for it. Take a sip.
It has to be some kind of fruit or vegetable.
I guess like an orange and a cherry.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I don't think I ever used these. Becca gave me these for my birthday or Christmas or something. They're like these tiny little men that hang on the side of your glass. So here we go. Oh, isn't that beautiful? I finally dug these out. So cheers to everybody. Huh?
You have to make tamales now.
I guess, yeah.
All right, Pazuzu.
So Pazuzu to all of you out there who joined us for this broadcast. Thanks very much. We love you. Wow. This is very good. I've got to hand it to Sam. He finds the best stuff. So, now that I have a drink in hand, is it time to look at ads?
I would love to look at ads. Okay,
now remember, I don't actually make ad gallery videos anymore because it's too hard to keep up with them.
It was kind of hard because you couldn't ad lib, because he was like, you had to go according to the script to like make
it. It's too restrictive.
Yeah, now you can do it like, remember those books where you would go beep and you turn the page?
Yeah.
In school.
You can read along with me in your book.
Like now it's like that. Like you can choose, go at your own pace. Nice.
So 1975 is when this film was originally released. At least that's the earliest that I could find it playing anywhere. It was in March in San Antonio, because of course all of these trashy movies start in Texas. Texas is great to look in their papers because stuff you didn't even know was released in theaters played Texas. Here is Crazy Fat Ethel herself right there in the ad, ready to chop some stuff off with her cleaver. This is, like we said, this movie's only an hour long. So it was originally intended to play with that second movie on the bill, Satan's Black Wedding, also directed by Nick Millard.
And then it was, when you put them together, it was like a double feature, but it was the length of a regular feature.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think we should have done 3 movies tonight?
No, I think you chose Criminally Insane. I remember that what sealed the deal was that it was short.
So, yeah, I think it's better to just keep it as is. So here's another ad design that there was with these alluring little boxes of shock and horror.
Is that also from Texas?
Oh, I was afraid you would ask me that.
Because you don't remember where it's from.
At least in the video. No, this is from Modesto. This is from Modesto, California, in November of 1975. And here we have a little variation that also...
In the movie, it's funny because in the movie they're talking about where their mom is and like where the mother character is, and she's like, "Oh, she lives with that Filipino guy over in Stockton," and Stockton and Modesto are like twin cities. So there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a tie-in.
Right on. I love any kind of ad where they're screaming.
So that actress is actually named Michael Flood. She had a man's name. And on IMDb, I keep trying to bill Michael Flood as Rosalie, and IMDb won't believe me. They insist that Michael Flood must be the guy who played John. And I'm like, trust me, I know this. But yeah, they're not. They don't care.
Don't they know who Michael Learned is?
Satan's Black. What do you think of Satan's Black Wedding as compared? Well, we can get into that. Like, do you consider it as charming as Criminally Insane, or is it like the inferior of the two?
No, I think they're on about equal footing. Satan's Black Wedding really isn't as memorable as Criminally Insane, I would say. So yeah, I guess Criminally Insane is a little bit better. What do you think?
Same. Like the same, like I think Criminally Insane has a life, a real life of its own. And Satan's Black Wedding is fun to watch, especially coming from that area and being able to see the house that he shot Crazy Fat Ethel 2 in and Death Nurse, but like back in the 70s. And he also made a lot of lesbian porn in that house. He made a movie called The Pleasures of a Woman that's kind of really pretentious and kind of fun to watch.
Ooh. Paul says you can watch Priscilla Alden snort cocaine. I find it hard to believe she ever did any cocaine, Paul.
I saw The Fabulous Alan Carr. I don't think that happened. You know, my ex made that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Give us the inside scoop then.
He loves self-made men, and so he made a documentary about William Castle and Jack Wrangler, the porn guy, and Divine, and I think Alan Carr was sort of part of that. You know, and one time we were like out watching Annie Hall, like on a date, and afterwards I said, I'm going to give you my life rights because you make such good documentaries about people. And he goes, I don't want them. And I was like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying, you know, you figuratively, you can have my life rights. He's like, no, I don't want them. No. And it was really awkward. We got in a fight about it. I think it was the beginning of the end.
That's grounds for dismissal.
I know. Absolutely.
I should also mention that Paul McVeigh is also one of the proprietors of It Came From Hollywood. I don't think I mentioned that when I brought up Robert Fries. Robert and Paul do It Came From Hollywood. A fabulous publication in and of itself. You should check it out. I've showed it a couple of times here on the program. Well, speaking of that, I do have some things to show on the program. Now, okay, let's get rid of these ads. The ad gallery is finished. Speaking of being dismissed. So not too long ago, I did a zine trade with this guy from Germany. And he puts out this fabulous, really mean-spirited zine called Scum Culture. So check it out if you really want some transgressive items. DriveIn ASYLUM is a nice publication. Scum Culture is very transgressive. I highly recommend it. It's very much like the zine I showed not too long ago called Dangerous Ideas, which is just like it's like a stapled together stack of Xerox paper. It goes one step further than DriveIn ASYLUM. We're Xeroxed and stapled at the spine. He just stapled it up in the corner.
Oh, like a memo or something. Yeah. So, okay, I have a question though. Okay, so DriveIn ASYLUM, it plays by the rules and it doesn't it's not mean spirited. But what is the thing that you've written in DriveIn ASYLUM or the article or whatever that has gotten the most outrage from, like, say, like, has any actors ever like written to you and said like, how dare you say my performance in that movie was lackluster? Like,
no, I never got anything from the print zine. I did get into a nasty confrontation though, sort of, not super nasty, but Jeffrey Bloom, who directed Blood Beach, made a comment on one of my posts because I called Blood Beach cheap.
Well, I mean, is it not?
Be that as it may, that may be true, but I didn't want to offend the director of Blood Beach because I love Blood Beach, and he obviously didn't know I meant it as a compliment. Yeah. And he, Blood Beach actually got some praise for its presentation. I don't know, maybe it's the home video version that looks kind of muddy and washed out, but Jeffrey got some nice remarks in reviews that said, even if they didn't like the monster aspect of the movie, that the film looked beautiful, and it probably does. It just looks a little fuzzy and I say
it has that foggy kind of 70s look that like movies like Carrie had.
Yeah.
And that I weirdly enough, for some random reason, I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street 2 has. Like, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 feels like a movie from 1979 or 77 for me. It kind of like it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think it was the same cinematographer as the original, and it's supposed to take place in 1985, but it just feels really retro. There's something about the way the cinematography looks that, like, whatever technique they used, I feel like was really prevalent in like 77 at, you know, like the Legacy of Maggie Walsh, or this, you know, like it looks like The Legacy, like it has that kind of, or The Hearse, you know, that movie with George C. Scott's wife, Trish Vanderveer, like it kind of, it has that look to it.
Yeah, I think I agree.
And Blood Beach does too, but I think Blood Beach is like came out in that era.
Well, technically, Blood Beach, the date on IMDb is 1980, but again, there weren't many places where you could see it in 1980. It could qualify as a 1981 film.
Probably, yeah. Did you have you ever seen Scream for Help?
That's one of those.
It's a Michael.
I'm not sure what movie that is.
It's a Michael Winner movie from the 80s.
Yes.
Okay. So there's the female villain in that movie, and it was named Lolita.
I did see that.
So, yeah. I forget her name, but I wrote like a blog about Scream for Help and about like how impressive she was as an actress. And for whatever reason, she got furious. She left me some comment and called me a moron and all this stuff. And I'm just like,
oh.
And she's like, and I had posted like these old things that I found on eBay where she had filled out like this bio like section for the Gordon or the, what's his name, Willis's Screen World annual. And she's like, how dare you put my address online? And I'm like, your address from an apartment you lived in 1978? Yeah, I'm sure somebody's really going to stalk you there. Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. There was one thing through the magazine also. I guess I'll mention this. I may have already mentioned it on the show at some point. But Ted Boas contacted me, speaking of the Deadly Spawn.
He was the producer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the producer of the film, and they hired a director who I featured in DriveIn ASYLUM, Douglas McKeon, because I reached out to him because he was the director of the film. You know, silly me, I thought the director was important, and apparently there was some enmity between Ted Boas and Dodds, and they were sort of doing it as their movie because they had the monster, they had the story, all they needed was someone to work with the actors. In other words, a director, right?
Right.
And they fired him. Like towards the end of the shoot, they were like, "Okay, you're fired," and they didn't let him edit the film, which is a real shame because you know the director should have a chance to edit it and do it the way he envisioned it, at least, or storyboarded, you know?
Yeah. And there was a lot of like TLC taken with the actors in that movie. Like I remember seeing documentaries about how they would get them together and rehearse and see who had, you know, cast based on what kind of chemistry they had with each other and stuff, which isn't very typical of like a movie like The Deadly Spawn, you know? So. Yeah.
Well, Ted Boas saw it for sale, and he contacted me and wrote this vaguely threatening message to me. And he was angry that I hadn't reached out to him to be in the zine. And this was like issue number 12 or 13. Number 12, I'm pretty sure. And I really wasn't all that familiar with publishing a magazine yet. And it was still early in DriveIn ASYLUM's history. And it was the first time I had 3 features in that one. Douglas McKeon, Jack Newbeck from Shriek of the Mutilated was in it, and also Brett McCormick, director of The Abomination. So I think that was right around the time that it started to sort of come into its own, DriveIn ASYLUM. And I was really bummed out that Ted Boas sent me this message. And like, if he sort of like sent me a message full of smiley faces that reminded me that he owned the rights.
Okay.
And I was like, well, what are you going to do? Sue me because I wrote about your 30-year-old movie?
Yeah, yeah. And also, too, I mean, it was like if you had advertised it as, you know, the most comprehensive deconstruction of the Deadly Spawn ever put to print, where we interviewed everybody who had anything interesting to say, then, yeah, sure, he could be insulted. But, like, wasn't it an interview with the director? I mean, why should you have the producer in on that? Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wanted to hear from Douglas because I hadn't heard from Douglas. I've heard Ted. You know, Ted's been behind all of the DVD and Blu-ray releases. Never once have I heard anything from Douglas, and now I know why, because they didn't like him and they got rid of him.
I saw him. So on Valentine's Day of 2004, I went to UCLA to see a double feature of The Deadly Spawn and Return of the Living Dead, and Douglas McKeon, I think is his name, was there in person talking about it. And he said that he missed the premiere. He was working in a restaurant as a waiter, and like he had to break down. They told him like he couldn't leave until he broke down his section and did his side work. And he was like literally missing the premiere of his movie because he had to like marry ketchup bottles. It was
unbelievable, but yet believable at the same time.
Well, he should have just asked for it off in advance. Like maybe he was
called in sick.
Somebody called in sick. Like I kind of don't miss restaurants sometimes.
My grandmother died. I can't come to work.
Right. I actually did work with somebody who said their mother died, and then like a couple months later they were like, "I'm going to my mom's house for whatever." I'm like, "I thought she died." And he's like, "Oh, that was some other lady that was like a mother to me." I was like, shut up.
Right. So that was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me, someone confronting me about something that was in the magazine. And, I was really bummed out because I admire Ted, obviously. He made a fucking great movie, so.
I was afraid that Nick Millard would get mad at us and try to shut our show down because he is a feisty old coot, and he'll the Alamo Draft House was like doing a Nick Millard film festival, and he was like, "I'm gonna have you people shut down." It's like, you're gonna shut down the only people in the country who are celebrating your career and your work and doing a film festival of your movies. Like,
that's strange.
Like, the guy is like, I mean, a lot of his career, you can tell he kind of shot himself in the foot. Like, he was on Facebook once complaining. He's like, "My movie's never played anywhere but the Grindhouse." And I'm like, did you want Criminally Insane to like win an Oscar? Like, make up your mind.
Where did he think they were going to be? That is the limit.
I know.
No one played it but the Grind. Of course.
Yeah, and also because the theatrical releases were him like four-walling theaters. Like he four-walled a lot of theaters in San Francisco, like, and had them showing, but they were always like these really crappy like theaters with like dead people in their chairs and stuff, like Market Street theaters and stuff. And he would show like 357 Magnum there for like 3 months and to talk about it being held over. And it's like, yeah, of course it was held over. You rented the theater. His wife is rich, so she pays for everything.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
He's funded no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
So anything else you want to talk about before we get into Criminally Insane? I'm stalling for time because this movie's only an hour long, and Sam's not going to be back until 10:30. So this movie's going to be over, and it's going to be another 20 minutes before he can be on the show.
We should have scheduled some like shorts. You remember like on cable and stuff when they would show shorts to pad out? Like, I remember like Jaws 2 like didn't fill a 2-hour slot, and so they would always show like little claymation shorts before it and stuff.
Paul asked what was the best experience I've ever had doing an interview. So many of them have been great. I have to say I've met some amazing people doing this, and that was, one of the things I had hoped. That's the way I hoped it would go, is that I would meet the people who were making these films, the people that were not so frequently spoken to and celebrated. And one of the first people that I wanted to reach out to was Linda Gillen from Terror House.
And Lifeguard.
Yes, and Lifeguard. And, she's been in so many other films. And Terror House was just one of my favorite obscure movies. And I got in touch with her, and she's just like the greatest person. I love talking to her. She's full of stories about old Hollywood. Well, 70s Hollywood, not old Hollywood, but now 70s Hollywood is old Hollywood. And she knew a lot of those players, and she was sort of like, she never blew up as an actor. So she sort of has like this sidebar perspective on Hollywood, and it's fascinating. Like there is no agenda with her. Like, she doesn't have to make anyone sound good by talking about them. She can tell you about the awful things that people did.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about talking to her. Getting to know Linda is probably and also Tony Lawrence. she was fabulous. She came on the program. Pat Carty came on the program. So I've met some fabulous people doing this, and they're people that I'm still in touch with. I hear from all of those folks all the time, and it's a lot of fun.
I liked Tony Lawrence.
Yeah.
She kind of, it was, I mean, obviously she reminded me a lot of her dad. And it's funny because she's just kind of like, she is kind of like, not a gruff character, but like I kept seeing him in her. It was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, she really does. She's a very, you know, feminine woman, but she does have this gritty edge that Mark Lawrence had. It's there. You can tell she is her father's daughter.
Yeah. So that was fun. That was a good show. Who's your like holy grail?
Rosie Holitik.
Who's that?
From Don't Look in the Basement, Horror High.
Oh, yeah.
Encounter with the Unknown.
What's up with her? Where's she?
Well, I guess Rosie doesn't like to talk to people about the movie. She's not really proud of them. She's somebody who, her life took a very different course than the time that she was making the movies, and I don't think she wants to go back and talk about it.
Yeah, so. I kind of feel like I feel so let down by actors sometimes because they'll be like, you have to understand, like, I was in a very vulnerable place. I was on drugs and I was in a bad marriage. And I'm like, so fucking what? Like, I love this movie. Like, get over it.
That's everybody, right?
Yeah. And so it's like,
all been in bad marriages or had some kind of substance issue. So.
Right. And so, like, I don't respect their boundaries. Like, I think they need to get over them for us. So, yeah.
The little people can have those problems too, you know.
But I've often thought about that sometimes because, like, you know, I've worked on many different kinds of movies, and there's certain things that I'm really proud of and certain things that I think are really unheralded and, like, that I wanted more people to see and notice. And I think it would be kind of weird. I'd feel conflicted if somebody was obsessed with me about some movie that I just didn't care about. Like some random movie that I worked on for a paycheck or something where, like, the director sexually harassed me and they were just like, oh, can you tell me again what it was like? No, like, I don't remember.
Paul asks if I've ever had an interview subject that answered yes or no. No, actually, I haven't. I've read interviews like that. I think sort of Christine DeBelle probably was the one actor personality that was interviewed in our magazine that she did give us some good stuff, but there were some questions that she didn't expound on, probably because she's been asked those questions so many times and she didn't really feel all that great about it. But She gave some brief answers, so I guess she would be the one I would say appeared in DriveIn ASYLUM that responded that way.
So you never,
but I know that
you never interviewed Orson Welles.
No, I wish.
He would be like, no.
Orson Welles was my kind of guy.
Was that really? Maybe when even in like Citizen Kane, but not 70s Welles.
Well, you know.
Yeah,
we all change, Mike Justice.
No, once you're on the wrong side of 60, you're dead to me.
You have this strange halo effect going on your face there.
Oh, I'm sitting right in front of a window, and the sun is setting out the window, and I have one of those things, like no home I feel like is complete without stained glass light catchers hanging in the window. So it'll be gone by the second movie. It kind of ruins the whole like DriveIn ASYLUM like nighttime atmosphere because I'm West Coast and it's still light here.
Those are the kind of effects that you can't buy.
True. Well, you could. Those are the effects that you can only buy. Like.
All right. So, hi, Margot.
Who's Melanie Haller?
I don't know. Margot, who is she? I assume she's somebody who did hardcore porn at some point in her life, didn't turn out very well. Those are actors that I can see not wanting to talk about their film career. But even people that have appeared in adult films, you know, like Sika, she's out there talking about it, or at least she used to be.
I think also it's like, it depends on what you're famous for, and you kind of don't want to just be surrounded by a bunch of Chris Farleys asking you about, you know, like,
yeah.
like I was, whenever I talk to people, it's like, they're always really proud of like something. And they're always kind of like annoyed that I'm interested in something they're not proud of. Like, they're like, did you know that I was like the third assistant director on Apocalypse Now? And I'm like, no, but let's get back to that time that you worked on, you know, like Psycho in Texas or something. So,
Do you remember what Pat Carty told us about Apocalypse Now?
vaguely, remind me.
Well, he knew Francis Ford Coppola from back in the day, and he said he read for Francis a couple of times, and Francis kept telling him, like, you're not right for this movie, but I'm going to use you in something because I like you. I don't have the right thing for you yet. Well, he finally had the right thing for Pat at one point, and it was this movie he was making in the Philippines. And Pat heard about it, and he was like, oh, that's not going to go well at all. He said, because Pat had just met the woman who eventually became his wife, and he was like, I didn't feel like I could leave for 6 months to go make this movie in the Philippines that Francis was making with no script, and Martin Sheen had already left because he was deathly ill.
Yeah, but you know what? It probably worked out fine, because if he didn't have an interest in using Apocalypse Now as a springboard to like a career, and he did,
though.
Yeah, but he was like, I mean, you know, like it might have just turned out to be like just that time that he spent 6 months away from his wife. You know, because he could get cut out. You never know with movies like that. I don't remember.
Margot, and someone else mentioned what she was from too. Oh, Vince knew who she was. Oh yeah, she had a sexual assault. So yeah, I wouldn't blame her for not wanting to talk about that. Yeah. By the way, thanks for hanging out with us, Margot. It's nice to see you. And Paul said he had a yes/no experience with Jack Hill, but he got to talk to you about Spider Baby 2. Rather, so that's interesting. We watched Spider Baby on the show once, and it went over pretty well with some folks who had never seen it before.
Spider Baby's such a weird movie. I kind of miss the old days where, like the pre-internet days, where the only background you would get on a movie was from a fanzine or something. So there was, you know, like I remember not knowing if Last House on a Dead End Street was real, like snuff or not, up until like, you know, post high school. And now you can find out all that stuff on the Blu-ray. But
well, these times we live in, we're so spoiled, right? There were times when we had to guess about these things, and now the information is all right there.
Or think about how hard it used to be to make a movie. Like any movie, no matter how crusty or low budget or whatever from the 70s, is, I feel like, worth so much because it costs so much, and to set up all the lights and the film and everything. And like now it's like we have so many movies produced, like low budget movies, that you could never get through them all. Like all the ones that are on Tubi and stuff. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing being able to just pull these things up right now, whereas before, you know, but even as recently as the 90s, you had to order a bootleg VHS or something. You had to trade somebody a ridiculous amount of money on eBay for their shitty copy of a VHS movie that never made it to DVD. So
I used to buy in the 80s and early 90s. I remember I used to find guys who had ads in the back of Fangoria, and they would sell like VHS dubs of Japanese laser discs, and it was the only way to see Phenomena, or the you know, or the letterboxed, you know, Deep Red or something. And then Anchor Bay, I guess, kind of put all of those guys out of business. But
good old Anchor Bay. How many times did they release Halloween?
Halloween and Dawn of the Dead are like, I have no clue which one to watch. Like, there's just too many options. There's some guy on YouTube who does like a Halloween home video, like a documentary about like the evolution of Halloween on home video, and I think it's like 45 minutes long. He has to go through like every DVD incarnation of it, and this one was identical to the previous one, except it was color graded just slightly more orange, and this one had scenes from the TV show incorporated into the print, and this one had them separate. Like,
I bought that one. I bought the one that was I already bought it once from them on VHS, and then it came out on these orange tapes. Do you remember the one that had orange cassette shells?
Yeah.
I bought that one. There were 2 tapes in that set. I don't remember I think the second one was one of those documentaries, the numerous Halloween documentaries that they produced.
See, I wore my media home entertainment Halloween out in the 80s.
Yeah.
I first saw it on cable. My babysitter and I stayed up late to watch it, and I was like 5 years old, and I thought it was the most perfect. It's weird to think of Halloween. Halloween felt it was really crisp and modern and groundbreaking, and it was so simple and so scary and so well done. I was like, this is my favorite movie ever. And now it's like I get mad when I hear young people going like, well, it's kind of slow. It's kind of stupid. He's just driving around in a station wagon. And I'm like, I want them to get off my lawn. I want to hit them with a cane. Like I want to hose them.
That is the limit, Mike Justice.
I was thinking about like, I'm getting to this age, I'm 45. And I was thinking about how I kind of just want to move to like a retirement community. I was like, I just want to spend time the rest of my life with people born in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And nobody after that. And it would help if they were horror fans. I'd love to live in like a gated community for retired horror fans.
We could start buying up property now.
I mean, this doesn't exist. Like, we should do it.
There's got to be some place where you can live cheaply now, like in the middle of the desert somewhere or something. So
yeah,
we'll have to start buying property there.
A Bisbee or something like that in Arizona. But it's like, yeah, Pittsburgh would be the best place for the gated community for horror fans because it has that horror pedigree. But it is cold.
True.
But,
you can do the Pittsburgh tour of all the horror locations, the movies that were shot here.
Mm-hmm.
You drive by Tom Savini's house.
Yeah.
There's lots of places you can visit in Pittsburgh.
Somebody online I was reading, they were saying something about how they had gone, like, they answered an ad on Craigslist where somebody was like, yeah, I have like, a food processor for sale or something. And when they got to the house, it was Tom Savini.
What?
Yeah. And they were just like, wow. Like they didn't, they knew who he was and they were huge fans, but it could have been anybody who would have answered that ad. It was something like for sale. It was like, I have, I don't know, like boxes of dryer sheets that I'm not going to be using or something.
I guess it's one way to clear out your house to make room for more DVDs, right?
Yeah. But it just seems funny that, like, I always think of people like that as just being completely horror oriented. And it's like, oh no, like Tom Savini actually does like put ads online saying he's getting rid of a blender or whatever.
I'd love to buy a drive-in, not necessarily the Riverside, but that would be as good a place as any. That's my dream, actually, to own a drive-in. And I want a dual screen drive-in. On one screen, we can do like, family type stuff or, stuff you can take the kids to. Because that's part of the drive-in culture too. You have to show stuff that you can take the kids to, so the kids can get into going to the drive-in.
I'm kind of I'm obsessed with that town that's next to where they had the drive-in recently, Vandergrift.
Yeah.
Vandergrift is all gothic-y looking homes, like around this kind of crumbling looking downtown. I mean, it looks like a horror movie. It's all criminally insane. It's all Deadly Spawn. It's all Don't Look in the Basement. Like that whole town is regional horror.
If you lived in this area, you wouldn't feel that way about Vandergrift.
Oh, well, you mean because it's like not fun, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's most of the people that live in Vandergrift probably are planning on ways to get out. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it looks cool, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because back in the old days, I would
feel it's a nice place. Yeah.
Well, in the old days, I would definitely feel like wherever I lived, like I would have to be compatible socially with my neighbors and I would have to live somewhere. But if there's one thing that the pandemic kind of taught me, for better or worse, it's like I probably could just live anywhere at this point. Like, like I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I could live in a town like Vandergrift because like I haven't really left the house for 2 years. So it wouldn't matter if my neighbors were all like boring blue collar Republicans or something, because I'm like, I don't hang out with my neighbors now and I live in Portland.
You would get a lot of blue collar Republicans if you moved to Vandergrift.
I want to live in Sewickley because I feel like Sewickley is like, it's got like yoga studios. It feels like it's kind of like upper middle class. Like I could get a shack on the edge of town and be like, have like a gaggle of like, middle class women who thought I was their hilarious gay friend. I think I could have a social life there. Vince
has a good idea. Build more drive-ins. I'm all for it. So one screen is going to have, the stuff you can take the kids to. The other screen is my curated horror film festival, never ending. It'll be like the New Beverly, except in the middle of nowhere. And probably there'll be 15 cars on the lot. So.
Could you have the screens like on one side they're watching a movie and on the other side they're watching, like, can you do that, or does the projection interfere? Like, have movies projected on the both sides of a screen. So like your horror movie festival. Yeah, your horror movie festival could be on the screen that's facing away from the road. So you would never you'd never have to answer for any of the shocking imagery, because on the other side they'd just be showing like Freaky Friday or something.
Well, you never had to answer for the shocking imagery anyway, because even porn drive-ins used to show stuff where you could drive by on the highway and see glimpses of skin on the screen. So
blood-sucking monkeys. The blood-sucking monkeys from West Mifflin ended up in Sewickley in that SCTV thing. He's like, they went to Sewickley. It was a nice suburb of Pittsburgh.
You do that very well, that Count Floyd.
I love Count Floyd. I love Count Floyd. It's so meta. Like, I wasn't until I was older that I realized that Count Floyd is actually supposed to be the character Floyd Robertson, who's the Earl Cannonbear's co-host on the SCTV News, and he's supposed to be moonlighting as a horror host. So Count Floyd is actually like supposed to be this awkward like character created by a character on the show.
Vivi had to come make an appearance. She went to the drive-in. She was at the Riverside on Saturday night, and she's a real attention whore. She loves people, and the more people that pay attention to her, the better. So she got a lot of that, but she saw other dogs there too, and she's not into it.
She doesn't like other dogs.
She doesn't like other dogs. She doesn't want anyone getting her press.
She's like a cat.
Yeah. So, are you watching tonight's program and it's the first time? If so, I'll explain to you. We don't actually show the movies here in the little chat format. We're going to end the broadcast here in a couple of minutes, and I posted the links to watching it for free on the Groovy Doom Facebook page. Oops, I didn't mean to do that yet, but there it is. Well, that's our send-off clip. So go to the Groovy Doom page and look at one of the last posts. You'll see the links to watch it. Criminally Insane is on YouTube. So hopefully you won't get any commercials, or you won't get many commercials anyway.
Did you name Vivi after the daughter in Mrs. Warren's Profession?
I didn't name her. She's not really our dog. She's our son's dog.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But she's living with us right now. And, hopefully she's living with us forever. Because now I'm totally attached to her. Right. I love her. I'm not going to let her go without a fight. I'll take him to Judge Judy. So go to the link and watch the movie. Come back afterwards, and we'll have a lot more to say about Criminally Insane and Crazy Fat Ethel. And Sam Panica will be back for the second segment. So make sure you're here for the second segment of the DriveIn ASYLUM double feature. Have fun.